Start with praises, end with praises, and then focus first on God. Make Him a priority, His honor, His name, His will, His kingdom. Make Him a priority. Forget about yourself. And after that, present your needs. When you present your needs, let's start. Give us, it doesn't say give me. Don't ever ask for bread for self. Trust me, you will not get it unless you work for it. To receive it from God, you need to ask for others. I learned that really well. I told you before. When I pray for myself that God would help me with something, instead of getting a solution, I get 10 problems. The more I pray, the worse it gets. When I pray for others, God always solves my problems. So I learned I kind of pray more for others and I get more help, Well, I don't pray for others for that reason, but it says give us, not give me. And the Spirit prophet says that the real blessing is not to seek a blessing, but to be a blessing. And she says it's a greater blessing to give than to receive. And then she says God would give us blessings to the degree that we share them with others. You understand? Now I want you to hear, like God told Abraham, God said to Abraham, I am going to bless you. And then you keep reading so that you may be a blessing for all nations. Why did God bless him? So he could be a blessing for others. God doesn't bless you so you are blessed. God blesses you so you are like Jesus. You are a blessing. Now think about this. It doesn't say, give us today our tomorrow's bread. It says our daily bread. And the Spirit Prophet says God will never give you today what you need tomorrow. So thus, she says, you learn to depend on Him daily, not on self. Because we have a tendency to plan and to save to make sure that tomorrow is safe. And God wants you to depend on Him tomorrow. Not that we should not save, but also that we don't get in extreme about worrying too much about tomorrow, because we may not be around tomorrow. And so, manna, when Jesus gave them manna from heaven, people that wanted to gather manna for tomorrow, it all spoiled, and they were punished because they didn't trust. They said, oh, I got today, I got to save for tomorrow. What if He doesn't give it to me tomorrow? Hello, He gave it to you today. That's enough proof that He loves you, and He will give it to you tomorrow. So focus today on today, and let tomorrow take care of self, okay? Now let me give you an example about give us today our daily bread. I want to think that I am very faithful. My wife and I, we decided long ago to be faithful. I remember when I was in construction university and my father got killed by the police, I had no more money. He used to send me a bunch of money. My father had beehives. He made a lot of money. And my father got money from work, got money from private work, got money from the beehives. And he was pretty well to do. Yet we lived with a very poor Volkswagen variant. If you Google it, it's a funny car. It doesn't have a radiator. It has cooling with air, like motorcycles, like the old motorcycles. And you could hear a metallic noise in the engine. And I remember it's Volkswagen variant, V-A-R-I-E-N-T, variant. And you can Google it. And it was combi. The back was like this, And my father had an old car and small house, regular old furniture. He would come home, when people came home with 2,000 a month, he would come home with 15,000 a day. And then my father would take all the money, all of them, put them in ministry. And he would say to my mom, honey, we pay 90% tithe, remember. He would say, remember, keep only 10% in the house. Mm-hmm. Did you hear me? And sometimes my mom would argue and say, honey, this month we need to fix the furnace. And my father would say, who gave us the health? We could have cancer. We could be divorced. Our kids could die. Who gave us the blessings that our kids are healthy and they love us and they love Jesus? Who gave us the blessing that we have a wonderful family? Who gave us the blessing to have work? Who gave us the blessing to earn so much money? It's God. Don't forget that all belongs to Him. Not only 10%. And He says, if God gave us so much, we keep it in the house, the economy is going to take it. It's going to drop. The government is going to take it. You follow me? He says, isn't it better if we invest it in heaven and we see precious souls in heaven? He said, give 90%, keep only 10%. And she would do, and he would come next day, and bring another 10, 15,000. And he says, I told you yesterday, we gave 90%, we got 120%. Let's give 95. And my father would say, let's test the Lord. See how far he goes. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? And he would go to work at the church and work to help build churches and do this and that. And he would take us with him. And sometimes people would say, let them home to do their homework. And my father would say, kids, do what they see. If you let them home, when they get married, they are going to keep their kids home away from church. I'm going to take them to church, so when they grow, they are going to take their kids to church. Did you hear? And so my father was faithful, but he sent me a lot of money. He would send me, like, when students had like receiving 400 a month, my father would send me about 4,000 a month. And he would pay the rent for a big apartment, 3-4 bedrooms apartment. The other students had to be in the dorm, like there were 300 together. I'm exaggerating to make a point, in a room. I was alone in a big apartment, in a luxury area, you know, a nice neighborhood. Instantly he dies, and I have nothing. And I moved from a big apartment into an attic with no AC, and it was summer. And it was 42, 43 Celsius. That's around 95, 100 Fahrenheit, more or less. And I am in the attic and no AC. And I'm like, you know. And so I had no money for food. So I remember from the last time he sent me money, I put aside 500 for tithe, 10% out of 5,000. And when I was hungry, I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to borrow the holy money. I took the tithe money and I spent them to eat. I was hungry. And then I felt so guilty, so guilty, so guilty about it. And I prayed and I confessed my sin. And I said, if you somehow help me, I'm going to pay it back and never in my life touch it again. And then next day, I received 550 from my sister. But I owed 500 to the tithe. And for this 550 was the other tithe for the 500 I received, so 550. So I get nothing again. So what do I eat? And I said, you know what? I would rather die hungry. I put all of them in an envelope and send them so I don't see them, so I'm not tempted to spend them. And then I walked to school because I could not afford to take the bus. It was 35 cents to take the bus. And I walked to school and I crossed Bucharest. And it was like hours and hours of walking. If you take the bus, it would be like 1 hour and something, 1 hour and 20 minutes. So I go through a shortcut through the park, but I leave like 3 hours early to make sure that I get in time to school. And I am walking because I have no money for the bus, 35 cents. And I am praying and say, Lord, I know you have forgiven me. You really test me to the limits because you didn't send me more. You could have sent me $10 more so I can eat something. You send me exactly how much I owe to tithe. You know? And I said, but you know, I'm going to trust in you. And as I am praying, an old man, really, really, really old, I don't know if he was 94, 95, but over 90 years old, tall and slim, says, hey man, I know you from the church. I said, okay. He said, you are up in the choir at the balcony. I said, yeah. I know you. You are one of those guys that sing in the male choir. Yes. What are you doing in the park? I go to school. Where is your school? I tell him in Tay. What? What are you doing here? Take the bus. I said, well, I don't want to. He says, you don't have money for the bus, do you? I said, I cannot tell you. He says, you are going to school? Yes. And your school is there? Yes. You don't have money for the bus. And then he says, I am alone. We have no children. I've been a lawyer all my life. I saved so much. So much. I have a treasure. And I'm going to die. I am old. I cannot spend it. And today I prayed. I said, Lord, show me somebody that I can be a blessing to. And then I took a walk through the park because I live here next to the park. And God impressed me to talk to you. I recognized you from the church. So now I know why. So he said, listen carefully, folks. How much did I put in the tithe? 550. He said, I'm going to give you 550. Did you hear what I said? He said, I'm going to give you 550 a month to the day of your graduation until you finish college every month. I'm going to give you 550 and I'm going to pay for your clothing and your apartment from now on because I want to be a blessing for you. As soon as I was faithful, God sent somebody to say, don't worry. You care for today, and I care for today. You understand? I remember when I graduated, I went to him with a bouquet of flowers. I said, thank you so much. He took the flowers, he hit me in the head and said, what's wrong with you? I didn't give you money, so you spend money on flowers. I gave you money, so when you get money, you bless somebody else. He says, I don't use flowers. Yeah, funny man. So my wife and I, in that moment, we talked to each other and we made the decision. We said, from now on, we are going to put 20%, not 10. Not all, but we are going to put so much percent, I'm not going to tell you how much, for the poor, so much percent for the mission, so much percent for the offerings. And then if there is a need, we are going to pray, and if God impresses us, we are going to pitch in as much as God would impress us without thinking about self. And if we don't have money, and if we die, we die. That's okay. It's worth to die for Jesus. And since we made that decision, God has been taking care of us, one by one, applying the chewing gum rule. You know what is the chewing gum rule? You can chew it forever, it never ends. That's the way it goes with money. We keep giving and we keep spending and it never ends. Like chewing gum. And so I remember the day, so I got the salary, pastor salary. I got the salary, I put the tithe, 20%, and I put the percentage that we decided for offerings, and I put for missions, and I put for the poor, and then I put for the bills, and then I put for tuition for kids, and I had nothing left over. I said, how are we going to live for the rest of the whole month? How are we going to live? We need to, we need to survive. How are we going to live? And my wife says, honey, what's wrong with you? You always plan. Look behind so many years. God has always been with us. Look behind and learn to trust in him. Don't worry about tomorrow. Today we have food, a really good food. She cooks. I don't need to go to restaurant. The restaurant is garbage. When I eat home, I eat heavenly food. I mean that. People who come and visit us, they're like, whoa, she should open a restaurant, And so she says, don't worry, today we have food. Tomorrow, God will provide as usual. Don't worry. And then I say, honey, I got to pay the tuition. So I take the money that were for our kids for tuition. I get in the van and I go around the block. The school was behind us, but you'd go 3 blocks around. And I drive, it was heavy rain, and I go around the block. And as I enter the school, there is a young lady in the rain, raining on her, crying. But she was visibly sobbing and crying. And I recognized her because I baptized her a few weeks before. So I stopped the van. I said, why are you in the rain? Get in the van. So she gets in the van and she was sobbing. I said, tell me, I don't tell you her name. And I said, tell me, why are you crying? And she, I cannot tell you. I said, yes, you can. No, I cannot. I am the pastor. You can. Please tell me. I said, well, they closed the GM plant and 400 people lost their jobs. Or I don't remember, 400, 4,000. Well, I don't remember the number. Don't call me on the number. But she was among those who lost jobs. And she had 2 small children. One was 2 and one was 5. And she says, I got a note from the landlord that I have to leave the apartment. I got a note from the power that they cut the electricity. And she says, we have no more food. I had 2 potatoes, but I have no electricity. I went to the neighbor to cook the 2 potatoes. I gave them to my kids and I didn't eat. And now it's winter and we are in the street and I don't know what to do. And I had in my pocket tuition money. And I always, in my life, always paid all my bills in time. Never been late to the bill. It's like a disease for me. When it comes, I pay it. I'm never late to the bill, So God spoke to me and said, get your hand in your pocket and help her. I said, Lord, that's tuition money. And God said, give it to her. I said, that's tuition money. It's not the plus money, it's tuition money. And God said, do you trust me? Lord, I trust you, but I got to pay tuition. And I told my hand, get in the pocket. And my hand refused, paralyzed. It was just, it would not move, So eventually I convinced my hand, got my hand into the pocket. And I said to her, listen, what is the urgent thing that you need right now? I said, no, nothing. I said, yes, it is. She said, we are hungry. So I drove her to Aldi. Aldi is the cheapest possible store, But it's good food, So I drove to Aldi and I took her in the store and I put a gallon of milk. I know I know it's not healthy, but don't judge me. If you judge me, I will pray for you. I put a gallon for milk, looked at her face, she was sad. I put another gallon and she smiled. She says, is that for me? I said, yes. I said, okay. I put some eggs, I know it's not healthy. And then I put more eggs, and then I put potatoes, and then I put onion, and then I put oil, and then I put sugar, and then I put, cabbage, and then I put this. I filled the cart. And I said, what else? She says, Pastor, this is too much, Pastor. I said, tell me what you need. I cannot. I said, hey, we are supposed to be a family, brothers and sisters. If we are not a family, why do we go to church? Why do we listen to the sermon if we are not a family? If we don't help one another, care for one another, pray for one another, cry for one another, rejoice with one another, it's a lot of one another's in the Bible. You follow me? So I said, tell me what else. And she says, Pastor, would you get some bananas? I said, yay, that's the cheapest one. Yes. I put bananas. The cart was full. Went, paid. She started to eat. I said, when is the last time you ate? She said, about 3 days ago. She started to eat. It touched my heart. And then I drove her home. We picked the kids from the school. I drove her home. And the kids were like, oh, heaven, And then I said to her, so what's next? She said, well, we need to leave the apartment and we don't know where to go. I said, hold on a second. Tell me the landlord. Tell me the telephone and the name. She gave me, I called the landlord. And I had left over from the tuition money a certain amount that was half of what she owed for rent. So I said to the landlord, I said, listen, I want you to forgive this lady for half, and I'm going to pay half. If I can sacrifice half, you can forgive half. She said, absolutely not. If I do that for her, I have to do it for everybody. I said, are you a Christian? Yes. I said, no, you are not. You are a pagan. She says, I am a Christian. I said, no, you are a pagan. I am a Christian. I said, no, you are a pagan. Tell me the church you go to. She told me the church. I'm not going to tell you what. And then I said, how many apartments do you own? She said, about 500. 500 apartments, I said. Yes. I said, well, it's very hard for you to enter in heaven. She says, why? Because you love money instead of loving Jesus. I said, it's wonderful to have money. Abraham was rich. Job was rich. My father was rich. It's wonderful. Praise the Lord. It's a blessing from the Lord. As long as you love your neighbor just as you love yourself. If you don't, then you love money. Then you have idols. I said, you are ashamed for Christians and for your church. She said, what? Who do you think you are? I said, I'm the voice of the Lord for you today. She says, you young man, if you don't get your act together, I can sue you. I said, go ahead. There is nothing you can take from me because I have nothing. Don't worry. And I said, listen, I am determined to ruin your life, I said. She said, what? I said, I'm going to call the newspaper and I'm going to tell about this young lady that lost her job and you kick her out. And I offered to pay part of it and you refuse, but you are a Christian. And the newspaper are waiting for these stories. They just suck these stories. And I'm going to local television and I'm going to tell him the story. And I'm going to tell your pastor and I'm going to make it public in this. She says, you don't do that. I said, hey, you don't know me. I'm crazy. I enjoy doing that. Trust me, it's going to give me joy to do it. I said, just try me. I said, just try me and you'll regret. She said, what do you want? I said, very simple. Forgive half and I pay half. I'm going to do it this month, but not next month again. I said, wonderful. God bless you. Bye. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I told her, I said, you are going to be lost on your children. She says, what do you have with my children? I said, well, children are monkeys. They do what they say. You can teach them whatever. They are going to do just like you are going to be selfish just like you are. She was angry with me. But anyway, she said, okay, I'm going to forgive half. I said, praise the Lord. Bye. And then I called my elders. I said, listen, this Sabbath, you don't see me. Why? Are you sick? No. Why? I said, this is what you need to do. I already paid for her food and I paid for her apartment, but she has no electricity. She cannot cook. She cannot heat the house. I don't want you to take from the budget, church budget. I want you to take from your own pockets. Because when you take from the church budget, it's no sacrifice. When you take from your pocket, it's sacrifice. I want you to do what I did and pay her electricity. And then you have a pastor this Sabbath. If not, you don't need a sermon because you don't practice what you learn. I go to a church that would practice what they learn. So you call the conference and complain if you don't do what I say. My elders got together, put money together, they paid electricity. I told the lady, I said, this month we paid for you. I don't care what qualifications you have. Go and get a job, any job, Walmart, I don't care. And work there until you get a better job. Because next month we are not going to help you again. But I want you, from whatever money you get, next month, to come to me and say, Pastor, I found somebody that has worse than me, and I blessed somebody else. And I said, if you do that, you are a Christian. That lady was crying her eyes out. She says, Pastor, I'm so happy. I'm so happy I got baptized into this church. You guys, you live what you preach. I can see Jesus in you guys. And she hugged me and she hugged me until I said, enough. And she hugged me and she said, Pastor, we are so blessed to be part of this church. I can sense God here. Well, I went home and I told my wife, I said, honey, I didn't pay tuition. She said, no, kidding. You always paid the bills. I said, no, I actually didn't. She said, you lost the money? I said, no, in my life, I never lost money. She says, you spent it? I said, do you know me as a spender? No. Then she says, what do you do then? I said, well, this is the story. I told her the story. Oh, my wife hugged me and says, oh, I love you even more. She says, you are not so concerned about tuition? You rather help somebody. I said, well, it was hard, but I did it. And then I said, honey, how are you going to pay tuition? She says, don't stress, honey. When is the last day? I said, tomorrow. She said, well, tomorrow is going to take care of tomorrow. I said, honey, I need the money for tuition. She says, relax. Enjoy today. That was my one. Around 2:30, the mail came. I go to the mailbox in front of the house, and I get a letter from IRS. And they said 4 years ago, there was a mistake in your taxes. We send the money back with interest. I took a picture of that. I will never forget. It was the money that I gave her and a little over. So I went and paid tuition the same day. God doesn't always do it that way, but He always blesses us beyond what we spend. You cannot outgive God. In fact, the fact that you are healthy, the fact that you have a family, that's a greater blessing than money. Am I right? But I learned in that situation, and many others that I'm not going to give you now, many others, I learned that when you say, Lord, give me bread, it may not happen. But when you say, Lord, give them bread and let me give them bread, God is going to give you so you have what to give. Mm-hmm. God is going to bless you and multiply your work and do enough so you could be a blessing, so you could support His work. So that's what Jesus says. When you pray, give us, not give me. He never taught you to say, give me. He says, give us the bread, then He will answer for today, and tomorrow for tomorrow. You understand? But you need to understand. I could give you the quotations. For instance, in one of the quotations, she says, nobody prays right seeking a blessing for self. Close quotation. Nobody prays right seeking a blessing for self. Did you hear it?